Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Edgerunners HQ and our Cyberpunk RED talk show, Night City Sofa. I'm your host, Jesper, alongside my co-host, Games End. Hey, buddy.
Oh, hi, I'm Games End.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm tired, man. It's been a week, but I'm good. Things are okay.
That's good.
Nothing is on fire, which is always pleasant.
Always, yeah. If we just ignore the flame flicker from this side of the room. So before we get into our show this evening, just a quick reminder to you all that if you have any questions or comments, please do not hesitate to ask in the chat. We'll answer them either throughout and or at the end of the show, depending on where things fit in. So if we don't get to it right away, it's possible we're just saving it till the end. During tonight's stream, during tonight's episode of Night City Sofa, we'll be talking about the Cyberpunk RED book Single Player Mode. Single Player Mode is written by Jay Gray, Peter Norton, and James Hutt, and it released mid-September of this year. You can pick up Single Player Mode on drive-thrurpg.com as a PDF, or a softcover in standard or premium print, or a combination of PDF and print version, whatever works best.
They only print every third page, and the other ones are digital.
I don't think you can be that specific. And if I worked at a print shop and you tried that, I might learn it. The link is also in the video description below. And with that, I think we'll jump right on in, unless there's anything.
I was going to just say that, like, this came out in September, and we've been excited to do this one forever. It's just that everything has been in the way of doing it. So we're finally here!
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, super excited. I was thinking about it. I'm gonna go off script, it's fine. It's my show, I can do what I want.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier today, and I've seen quite a few people, they're like, after I get the core rulebook, what other book should I get? And honestly, especially if you're a GM, Single Player Mode would be my
real high on that.
Would be the next thing to get. I know a lot of people like go for Black Chrome, or they'll say Danger Gal Dossier, and honestly, no, gear, you can get gear free in DLCs. That's fine. That will keep your player sated for a while. Honestly, you don't need it. Unless you need NPCs in your world or help building NPC stats, you don't need Danger Gal Dossier. Single player mode covers so much more. So if you had a choice, honestly, second in that list for me would be single player mode.
If I was stuck on a desert island with like core book and one other thing, it would probably be single player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I assume I don't get access to the DLC on the desert island.
They drop them as leaflets instead of saving you. Yeah.
Once a year, they drop off the
once a month.
The Compendulum.
No, that you get with your yearly supply on your desert island to help you survive for a year is the interface books, but monthly pages of the DLC come fluttering down.
In some months, it's really heavy.
Yeah, like when Magic Returned from Riolo. That one was a lot. Yeah. Okay, so getting into it a little more seriously. For those of you who may not know, Single Player Mode is a Cyberpunk RED supplement book that is so much more than what it may appear to be at first glance. In short, the book is a means for anyone to play Cyberpunk RED at any time with anyone. As in addition to having the core rulebook, you still need the core rulebook to play.
Yeah, it would be much harder to play it without the core rulebook.
Yeah, you can. Almost impossible. You will still need that. But if you can't find a group and you still want to play, this book gives you all the tools you'll need and acts as the GM as your campaign for whatever questions may arise. The long answer, however, is this book is a tool for players, GMs, creators, and enthusiasts of Cyberpunk RED. If you are a GM at a game, this book can help with ideas, campaign building, names, generators, like there's so many listen tables to just give you any kind of support you might need when you're stuck. Or if your player asks you, hey, can we go furniture shopping this episode and I need a furniture store? Or, hey, I want to go for a boat ride on my date. Where's a yacht club or a boat dock? I don't know. This can help you quickly generate things.
Who else is in this coffee shop? And you, like, check.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a player in a game with a GM, this book can still answer a lot of questions that you may have about your backstory when you're fleshing things out. Even through your life path, like your friends and enemies table, you can use the NPC creation to create those NPCs for you, so you know exactly who these friends and enemies are and what they look like and how they act.
Well, and I was going to mention this later, but I'm going to throw it out there now.
Yeah.
Another thing is, if for some reason your GM's power supply breaks, or for some reason the game gets canceled that week, you can use single player to still enjoy the experience of role-playing by yourself.
Exactly.
I know that's a very specific example of one reason why a game might get canceled, but still, it could happen.
It could happen. Yeah, that was...
for story writing purposes?
For story writing purposes. In short, it's a fantastic tool, no matter what you need. I was going to mention this later, but since we said storytelling purposes, I was stuck on a homebrew mission I was writing. And I had all the plot points, but I didn't necessarily have, like, were they connected? It was, I don't know, murky at best, and I didn't like it, so I used the random table, a random plot generator, so you can generate random, like, development or cliffhanger. And so I would roll on those and kind of help that expand on what I had already written. I just needed, like, those beats because it was too messy, and it cleaned it up real nice for me. And that's just a mission I'm writing to eventually release out to as part of my homebrew. So I still use that for just as a creator, not for any game that I'm currently playing, not for a game I'm GMing, just as a creator. This book is a fantastic tool.
Yeah. And we'll get into why.
Yeah, and all the different pieces that help. So, well, I do want to say that single player mode probably may not, I'll say may not, can't say that it wouldn't exist without, but may not have existed without Peter Norton and his channel Hollow Pond Solo Sagas, where he created a solo actual play series for Cyberpunk RED because it was one of his favorite games and it didn't have a single player mode, so he used all his enthusiasm and experience as a GM, as a solo play, actual play creator, content creator. He's got solo plays for tons of different games, and he kind of built his own system in order to play Cyberpunk RED, which was really cool, and that set the foundation for what he created with our Talsorian Games to give us this single player mode.
We for sure wouldn't have it yet. If we would eventually get it, maybe, but like without that happening, there's no way we would have this right now.
Yeah.
Yes. And like me and some friends were talking about doing a GM-less game in Cyberpunk, and we were like, oh, we're gonna have to create an entire system for it. Somebody beat us to it, thank goodness.
Thank you, Peter. So thank you to Peter, thank you to Jay. I know they did predominantly a lot of the actual writing in this book. James said he mostly just made sure balance and mechanics were good. So thank you both, because this is absolutely fantastic. And it is broken. The book is broken into 5 sections, and we're going to go through them one by one, starting with Going It Alone, an introduction to solo play.
Yeah, so the book starts out with the Going It Alone section is basically the, like, what the hell is solo play? And it does a really good analogy at the start of it, saying that a traditional TTRPG is much like a play, where each of the players are playing a character like an actor would play a character, and the GM is like the director, being the world around them to support the story that the characters are creating. And then solo play is more like being a stand-up comedian, And so anytime you need those details that a director would give you put in, you ask the audience for suggestions and they shout stuff out. In this setting, the audience that you're asking are the charts and tables in the book. There's an oracle to answer yes or no questions. It's just a way to tell a story as a character without having to have the GM present for it, and still have a really unique experience that isn't just super predictable, which is super important. And it brings up very quickly, like, okay, you're playing by yourself, why wouldn't you just cheat playing this game? And it says, like, yeah, you can do that. Like, if you roll something and it doesn't make sense for the story, or if there's something on a chart that you like better, pick that. That's fine. It's your story. This is your time. This is your game. Do what you want to do. It does kind of mention, like, hey, maybe not succeed at everything all the time, because it kind of takes the playing a game out of things. And it's true. Like, if you were going to do that, like, just complete, like, fantasy fulfillment kind of thing, maybe just write a story instead of playing a game. There are easier ways to go about it.
Fails can be just as memorable, and a lot of people forget that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I said I wouldn't do this, but in a game I played in, if I hadn't failed a certain resist drug check, a whole arc would have gone completely different. So yeah. embrace your fails. They can make for epic stories.
Oh, Sarah, Jessica, and Parker. But yeah, no, you need.
Sorry,
like,
for those of you watching the video, that's Little Games' default NPC names whenever he's stuck.
Whenever somebody's like, "What's this character's name?" I'm like, Sarah, unless I've already introduced Sarah, and then it's Jessica.
Yep. And if they
unless it's a dude,
Parker.
And then it's Parker. But yes. Sorry, where was I? There we are. It talks about, like, why do single player instead of some other formats, like playing a video game or something like that. And solo play, single player, allows you to have a lot more freedom than a video game is capable of giving you. It allows you to tell the story you want to tell instead of staying on the rails of what a program is going to make you do. And I think that that's super true, because, like, yeah, if I just was like, hey, I really want to play some Cyberpunk, I could play 77, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great game. But I can't screw around as much in that game as I do in normal tabletop. I have screwed around a lot in that game. But I can't just, like, I'm gonna go get drunk in the bar tonight and start trouble. Like, it's a very different vibe than doing it in a role-playing setting.
You have to find, like, a specific bar that's open, and I'm pretty sure you can actually in that game, but still, I get what you mean.
Yeah. Well, and then, like, you can play this as a GM-less system with your friends if, you want to get some people together and play it that way. That's fine, too. You don't have to do it single player. This is just a way to not have a GM. And you just make the decisions that are logical. Like, combat's a big thing in this game. Like, how do you decide how combat goes when it's in your best interest that you win the combat, obviously. But you have to make the choices for the combatants that make sense for them to make. They can't all just be like, oh, I give up, you're so awesome all the time. That doesn't really work. Like, it doesn't make sense.
An entire gang that does that. But in a healthy, supportive way. Like, new edge runners, they go after them, and they're like, oh, you're so strong, to, like, build up their confidence.
Oh, we could never win this battle.
Run away! Not all heroes wear capes, some wear curly mustaches and black capes. So want this to be a thing now.
Right. But this is also a great way to test drive a system. Like, let's say you really want to play Cyberpunk, but none of your friends show any real interest in it. You could try this and be like, oh, this is how the game plays, this is how it feels. And then when you go to show it to your fellow players, you can be like, hey, I know how this works. I'm not just walking into it blind. Or in a lot of people's cases, they end up being the forever GM for their group. And then they get to play a game. They may be playing by themselves or in a small group without a GM, but they still get to play, and that's nice.
Yeah.
Love for the forever GMs out there.
It could also be a great way of like encouraging those other players at the table that GMing isn't so hard because you're all kind of GMing together, and that gives them the experience without it feeling like it's all on their shoulders.
Right, because I know a lot of first-time GMs are really worried about how they'll come off and like how it's going to go. And for the most part, if you just kind of get over that hump, most people are fairly good storytellers if they just, believe in what they're telling and plan ahead and know what they're going to do. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Are you going to give me a hard time for the fact that I give a skeleton plan?
Yeah, I was like, and if planning ahead is just bullet points, that's absolutely acceptable. And that there's no sarcasm there. Absolutely no sarcasm there. It sounds like there is, but there isn't. Everyone GMs differently. There are people who will write pages upon pages upon pages of notes because I'm very bad at improv, and there are people who are wonderful at improv.
Sometimes I write a page of notes.
Just bullet points, and they're perfectly fine, and that's great for them. Not jealous at all.
And then the other really good use for the system, as we talked about, is as a GM assistant. If your players are screwing around and like, hey, we want to go inside a sports bar near here, you can just invent one using the tables and charts in this. If they're like, hey, I want to see what's in this alley, man, roll on the junk table and I'll tell you what's in this alley. It's not going to be useful, but it's there. Also, they have really good sheets, which we'll get to at the very end of this, that allow you to record basically everything. And when I go over them, I will explain why I've said that. But that way you can keep track of what's going on in your story, beat by beat. You can keep track of experience that you spend. There's just so many great charts that are super helpful. And when you're doing it alone, especially if you're wanting to make this into a longer game instead of a one-shot, you need to have those notes so that you know, like, oh, I can bring this guy back.
I'm sorry, can you say that just one more time for me?
What did I say?
You need to have these notes? Can you just you need to have notes? Note-taking's
Yes,
important?
occasionally you have to take a note.
One more time for me?
You need to have these notes so that you can bring back characters and do callbacks. I know, right? I'm getting such a hard time tonight.
You are. I'm sorry.
I have it coming. It's okay.
Hey, supportive of your GM style. Jealous, but supportive of your GM style. The fact that no one at the table takes notes.
I take notes up here, and they're not entirely accurate. And then I'm not going to go over it, but I will say that there is a section that is like an example of play. Super helpful if you're wanting to learn how to do this. Read through that. It's awesome. It is, however, a lore section, so I just skimmed through it and moved on. So I know how much Jess hates lore.
I like the root of shade.
And then it finishes off this section by talking about like mixing and matching. Basically, it's a list of where there's other charts, which is if they've published a DLC or a book, chances are there's a chart or a list in it somewhere that you can roll on, and you should use them. Because I love random rolling on tables, so...
Specifically, there's a single-player mode plus DLC that's absolutely free that includes a bunch of tables.
Right, which are super amazing. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jess. She's going to talk about the specific tools that are used to actually play this, now that I've given you a brief overview of why and how you would do it. So
it's going to be a lot. Strap yourselves in. Try to do this as best as I can. So as Games has mentioned, the book and essentially these tools act as a GM emulator so that you can still have surprises and those elements of uncertainty in your game. That's very important. The first and arguably most important core tool is called the Oracle. So whenever you have a question, or whenever there's doubt about an outcome, you're going to ask the Oracle. When you use this tool to ask questions, you need to narrow it down to one of three types of questions. First is a check question. So if you're making any sort of check for your character, like a skill check, a combat, like or any sort of skill check, I suppose, that is the type of question, right? Can I sneak past this person? Am I able to pick this lock? Check question. Next is a closed questions. So those are for simple decisions made with defined outcomes of success about a scene at large. And one of the examples the book gives is the local gang out in force tonight? And these sort of questions tend to work best if, like, the more interesting option is to say yes, narratively. So when you're asking these types of questions, try to keep that in mind. What is, like, the more interesting outcome for the story? And finally, there are open questions, which are beyond the yes-no kind of answer you're looking for. And this will create a more dynamic prompt or situation for your story. Example of this from the book is like, what is in X location? You don't know what's going on in this building you're about to enter, so what could it possibly be? Did you have a question or comment, Gaines? It looked like you did.
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
Okay, cool. So for both closed and open questions, the book walks you through a step-by-step guide of what to roll and how to interpret the results. Also reminds you to keep a good narrative in mind, even if it makes it bad, in quotes, for your character, which we've talked about. Obstacles are placed in front of your characters all the time, and it makes for a much more dynamic and interesting story. So don't shy away from them. Because you're not going to tell, like, your friends about the story where you just kind of walked in and did the job and walked out and there was no problem. You're going to talk about the one, like, super intense dynamic moment that either it went bad or it went really good because you overcame that obstacle. And if you don't put those obstacles
Jess,
there, you don't have that moment.
Today, I crossed the street.
Now, had you said you crossed the street while playing Froggo with cars, much more dynamic story.
Right?
While moving an
We're
arcade
telling.
cabinet, much more dynamic story. So yeah. That's the Oracle. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'm going to move on to the next tool. Which is, if you don't have like these yes/no questions or any sort of questions, the next set of tools are to set up these challenges. And the book groups them into three different types: investigation challenges, social challenges, and combat challenges. Investigation challenges, you set a goal, you determine the number of checks that are needed to proceed, you determine the skills and the DV and the actions needed to, like, that are associated with those checks. Then you'll determine any successes or failures, and then finally you can narrate the discovery or how that investigation went for the character, whether it was a success or a failure. So plan everything out first, do the rolls, and then narrate. For social challenges, it's fairly similar, but there's a few extra steps before you build the encounter. So first you need to determine if it's a quick encounter, like getting past a bouncer at a club, or something far more complex. And once you know that, then you need to determine who's part of the encounter. And those are your NPCs. And the book groups the NPCs into three categories. I do like that everything's in threes.
Right. It's structured well.
It's really, yeah, I really like it. And those are your background characters, your supporting characters, and your key characters. Now, background characters are just the everyday people that we pass by. Some are memorable, some are not. Supporting characters fill a specific like role in this like in the narrative at that moment, but they may not last. Where key characters are the ones that are going to keep coming back. So either your major baddie or the friends and enemies on the life path, whatever those are. So once you know what NPC or NPCs are going to be needed, then you can build your social encounter, and it's again pretty much the same steps. Set your goal, you determine the number of checks, make the checks against their like DV, determine your successes and failures, and then narrate the scene. Fairly straightforward, and the book does break this up with nice examples and more explanation than what I'm going through. But very, very simple, very straightforward. And then finally, we have combat. And the book does say the first thing you need to, or you should consider before creating the encounter is what is the purpose of this combat. Combat takes a lot of time. Even if you're doing it in single player mode, combat takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to set up, takes a lot of time to go through. So what is the purpose of this combat before you even get into it? If you want to do it because you just enjoy combat, don't go for it. Build it. Have fun. No one's stopping you. If combat maybe isn't your thing or you've done a lot of it lately, then consider what the purpose of this obstacle is for. And if the outcome doesn't really matter, do you need a full combat, or can it be resolved another way, either through a skill check or a face down? If the outcome does matter and combat is important, then you have your options of either playing it out round by round, or you can use the quick and dirty combat rules, which are so fantastic, but really, really skewed, I will say. Skewed as in, like,
yeah, but
I played through it, and 1 or 2 bad rolls can really tilt the combat against you, where if you play through it, 1 or 2 bad rolls likely isn't going to make that much of a difference. Skewed isn't the right word, but there's a big swing of...
It's weighted.
Yeah, 1 or 2 bad rolls and you may be completely...
Well, and when you're simplifying anything, like, every roll matters at that point. Like...
yeah. And then beyond going like round by round and how to do quick and dirty, the book adds the morale mechanic, and I really love this, and I kind of semi-wish this had been in the core rule book as a thing for GMs to keep in mind, and that's not everyone is going to fight until they die. Right? Everybody that's in that combat is in that combat for a reason, and everybody has a point where they will either, some might choose to fight till they die, some might not. And when you're building a combat encounter, what you need to add, I see your face, I will get to you in a minute. What you need to remember is to give every enemy, or the group of enemies, depending on what you're doing, a stress point. And that point will determine whether or not then you can roll on the table to determine whether or not they stay in the fight. Games. You had something to say?
So, I think Cyberpunk is a really interesting example for this. The reason being that, like, in most settings, I would say, like, a more fantasy style, you have very fanatical people or people who are fighting you because they need something. In Cyberpunk, a lot of it's about being paid.
Mm-hmm.
And money is only a motivator so far.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how much I'm making. If somebody has a rocket launcher, I'm not making enough. Personally. For me as a human being.
Ah, yes, fair.
I mean, like, assuming I'm running the shadows, like, if I see a gun or a sword or something, I'm gonna be like, this is business as usual. But if somebody has something that's military grade, I'd be like, nah, you know what? I'm gonna go do a different job. Peace. And I think in Cyberpunk, that morale thing is more important than it is in some settings. Because there's a lot of motivations in modern and future modern society for why a person does something.
No. If you're a gang protecting territory or protecting someone specific, like there are a few protector gangs out there, they may fight longer, harder. If you are a well-paid military asset who has good weapons, good gear, you might stay longer. If you're just, some random scavvers that rolled up on a crew and suddenly they're kicking your ass, no, you're probably going to want to run to live to scav another day.
Yeah, especially if you literally have no interest in it. Like, if it's just a territorial thing, like you live in the hot zone, you're part of a gang, and there's some people in it, scaring them away is important because it's your territory. But if they're well armored and well weaponed, nah, like they'll pass through and leave.
Exactly. I mean, chances are a cop is going to fight back, but what if it's a cop that's on their last day before retirement and they've survived this long? Nah, man, not freaking worth it depending on what they're going up against.
It's a Friday night, my kid has a choir concert.
Yeah.
I clock out in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Next person's problem. And especially in the dark future, that's probably more the mindset than not. So
yeah,
keep that in mind. And stressors, again, could be any number of things. Could be around in combat. It could be, if so many of their allies go down. It could be when they themselves reach a certain health point. And then how they choose to exit that combat is entirely up to you. They may run. They may surrender. They may be like, no, I'm done. I'm out. That's up to you in your narration. Whatever you think makes the most sense. But once they reach that point in the book, you'll roll a d10 and consult the morale table. And then, depending on what you roll, they'll either keep fighting or they'll back off. So there's always a chance, so give yourself some room. Where if they're like, no, I'm going to stay and fight, I would recommend giving them some room where they, if it's like, well, when they get to half health, they'll be like, that's their stress point. Because at half, even if they're like, no, I'm going to keep fighting, and they take like a critical injury, at that point, if it doesn't kill them, they could be like, you know what, I'm at half and I've got a critical injury. I'm out. It still gives them time
for sure
to leave. The next tools are the quick and dirty combat and the quick and dirty net running tools. Both of these tools simplify combat or net running into one group of roles that decide the outcome. Both come with a section on how to narrate failure. I'm not going to expand on these because Games and I are going to be doing an actual GM-less game next week to showcase these rules, and we'll show you in action then. Because there's a little more nuance to it, and I feel like it's best to show rather than tell. But it groups them all,
yeah.
And then whatever side has more successes or failures, that's what wins.
That is a very broad.
Yeah. We'll show you more next week.
Show us next week.
Yeah, there you go. Come back for that. The final tool is the solo play clock, and the clock allows for an element of uncertainty beyond your control, and I really, 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 really love how they did this. Because it's not just a countdown clock. So, first you set up the event or the consequence that the clock is tracking. So if a bomb is going to explode or whatever, right? Then you determine the dice pool by selecting as many d6s based on the expected timing. So if it's a very short time frame, you're only going to pick 3 or 4 d6s. If it's longer, anywhere between 5 and 8. Once you have your pool, you choose the triggers. The triggers to determine when you roll those dice. Could be time-based, like at the top of each round. It could be whenever a skill check fails. It could be some combination of both. It could be at a narrative moment. Whatever you decide are the triggers, that's when you roll that dice pool. When you roll that dice pool, if you get a 1, any dice that show up with a 1, remove that many dice. You could roll no 1s. And like if it's the top of the round, you could have 5 or 6 dice, roll absolutely no 1s, and it's still the same dice pool for the next round. And you might think, oh, I'm good, I'm safe. And then you roll again, and 4 of those 5 or 6 dice are 1s, and now you might be screwed.
Gets out of control quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that they use dice and not just a countdown mechanic, because it really does add an element of when
tension?
it's going to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like conversely, you could go from like 5 dice down to like 2 really quick, and then those 2 dice just refuse to give up.
Yeah.
Like,
And you might be okay.
yeah,
Which is fantastic. And then of course your event that this, or consequence that the clock is counting, will occur if all the dice are gone. If you or whatever you're trying to do does not get resolved before all the dice are gone, the event happens. And those are all the different tools to help you tell a story. And there's a lot there that covers all possible situations and outcomes, and they go into a lot more detail, obviously, than I did here, and they give beautiful examples and a continuous story to show how each of these tools works in one single narration, which is just absolutely beautiful.
for sure.
And that's my long spiel on tools. Core tools.
You summed up quite a bit of information in like 10 minutes, so good job, you.
Thank you.
I get a much easier job here. I'm discussing missions and campaigns and storytelling in single player. And like we've talked about in the past in previous episodes and things, you can always use a pre-made mission that's in various books. Like a lot of the books have scream sheet missions, or just short planned out. Like you could do the apartment if you wanted. You could do anything for many of the various releases, like you missed Gen Con or something like that,
or even the actual mission books, like Tales from the Street, or Street Stories.
Yeah,
Tales of the Red Street
yeah,
Stories,
for sure.
and Tales of the Red Hope Reborn. Could play for those.
But the book also includes a story builder, if you're more inclined to tell your own story, and keep it completely fresh that way. So it starts out with, you have to try to figure out who is hiring you, and there's great tables to determine that information from you, and then you have to figure out who's hiring you and why they're hiring you. And then the next step is to figure out what the mission they're hiring you for is. And for the most part, all of these work really well together. I actually had a hard time finding an example of one that didn't make a lot of sense. But I determined, what if you rolled an AI entity is hiring me to start trouble between the bozos and Militech. Then you have to kind of walk through why is this AI entity hiring me to do this? Because I'm not 100% sure. You can always re-roll something if it's not what you want, obviously. The nature of random is sometimes the random doesn't work out. But I think you can come up with a really interesting plot in your own mind of okay, I have these weird, disparate elements. How do I make those fit together in a way that fits the story? Or maybe you're playing a solo meathead that knows very little about tech, and you roll and it's a net infiltration job that's all net running. You could have a net running NPC do that part for you, or you could just re-roll it. Because at the end of the day, this is your game. You're doing this to have fun. And so, do what is fun. The third step is the focus of the mission. Because in the first 2 steps, you get a vague idea of what the mission is. But in this step, you develop what the specifics of what is going to be necessary for it. And then the last big step on here, second to last big step, is determining the pay. In the core book, there is a chart that tells you what different jobs are worth. But sometimes it's more interesting if you get information, or you're given a prototype, or you're given there's so many more better hooks that you can get other than just money. Don't get me wrong, we all have rent to pay, so I get it. And we have some expensive hobbies. But what if you're doing the job because you need a favor from that AI for some reason? And so you're doing the job to curry favor in the future, which sets up for another story which is interesting. And then lastly, it talks about adding a twist. And it says in here, like, no job ever goes well. Nearly every mission goes poorly at some point. You don't always have to do it, clearly, but most of them do go poorly. So nearing the end, like nearing completion of the mission, you roll on the twist table to see like what happens that makes things go to shit, which I love because if you've watched some of the stuff I've ran, I really love doing Fiasco, and the tilt in Fiasco is one of my favorite moments because you spend all of this time trying to get the story to make sense, and like you build the rails for where this train is going, and then you roll the tilt and you're just like, woo! And then you have to like deal with it, and I love that. And so I love that like the last step in this is to build the twist. Yes, Jess?
Batman.
Yeah.
You've seen the Fiasco episode, you know. If you haven't, you should check it out on the Saves for Stealth channel.
I'm always sad because I always want people to play more Fiasco with me, but every time I'm like, hey guys, we can play Fiasco, they're like, no, I'm not doing it. But yeah, honestly, that's probably one of my favorite elements, and I'm glad to see it represented here because, you know, sometimes things get out of control. And then the next area the book talks about is filling out the beat chart for play, which they've done before in the Building a Mystery, and a few places, honestly. But they've done a really good job with the DLCs. Check those out. Here, they also do a good job. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying that, like, if you go through all the DLCs and things, they've given you a really good idea of how to construct a well-made story. Even if you're not in control of the outcome of the story, you can construct a really convincing and compelling story based on, like, okay, well, we need like this kind of element, and maybe we go from an investigation scene into a combat scene, or, you know, things like that. So filling out the beat chart gives you a great idea of like where the story is going and how to chart out like how well you're doing. Because if you don't know like what the story structure is, then it's really hard to know when you're nearing the end of that story structure. And then like it finishes out with talking about how to the logical steps of like making a campaign, making a long going story, and like how to work characters back in and things like that. And I think it's this section's really worth the read because it lets you know, if you're making your own story, a great way to structure a story you don't have the answers to, but is fun to play. So, yeah. And then, obviously, next up, we're going to talk about tables and charts, because random tables are at the heart and soul of any good solo play game. So I'm going to pass it to Jess to talk briefly about those.
Very briefly to talk about this. But the tables start on page 32 and they extend to page 91. It is the largest section of this book, and it covers such a wide range of elements. The book does also encourage you to make your own lists, or pull in lists from other games, or lists in other DLCs. Lists are great. Add more lists if you want. But I will say, everything you could probably possibly want or need is in this book.
Or one of their other books. Like, so many lists.
So many lists. They're wonderful. Thank you for the lists. Also, to make your life easier... Sorry.
I was just going to ask, do you have a favorite list on here?
Ooh, I will look in a moment. But
okay, sorry.
No, that's a great... Maybe, actually, hang on. To make your life easier, we can get through this section, and then I'll let you know. I'm going to think on this. I'm going to let my subconscious think on your question. To make your life easier, the closed question oracle table and the morale table from combat encounters are also included in this table section, so you don't have to keep flipping back and forth if you're like, oh, where was it here, and where was there? Tables are in the table section. There was a table mentioned earlier in the book.
Yep.
It's also in the table section.
Fantastic.
Beautiful, love it.
And if you have, like, physical books, I'm 100% in favor of physical books above digital books every time.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about the digital books is you can click on the little links within the book and it'll take you to the right tables, which is very handy. So you're not flipping around.
Hyperlinking, I'm pretty sure Jay does all of it, and it's what is the popular
So
phrase?
good.
He's doing the Lord's work. Like, honestly, cannot praise the hyperlinking in all the PDFs enough.
Right.
Jay can't have favorites, but you can. I generally tend not to pick favorites because I think I like his philosophy of when you pick a favorite, it kind of diminish your fun in the other things, and I stand true to that. But I will come up with some lists that I enjoy and I think that I gravitated to maybe the most.
Okay.
So after the close question oracle table and the morale table are all the other lists and tables in those like 60-ish pages. Some examples of and these are the headings of the tables, not the specific tables themselves, just the headings. Are sight, sound, and smells, places to live, factions, corpse loot, random encounters, random beat charts, and so much more. Lists are tools that can help anyone, GMs, players, creators. If you're stuck as a GM and need an idea, use these tables. If you're a player who needs to fill out their friends' enemies list or where you live, use these tables. I already said that, as a content creator, I use the beat chart to help me fill out a homebrew section. So they're great. They're fantastic. There's so many. And they're wonderful. Always have it handy. It's fantastic. As for which lists I enjoyed,
Sure.
let's go with that. I think I love the names lists. There are, masculine names, feminine names, non-binary names. I love that they included non-binary list.
For sure.
I mean, LGBTQ has always been promoted in Cyberpunk RED. Everyone's inclusive. As someone who, as a GM, fails horribly with names, love me a good name generator. Love me a good name generator. Also has handles for people, which is
That's
also
on my list of favorites.
Yes, handles, fantastic. I know one of my favorite lists from the DLC is AI intelligence, because they can be dum-dums, and I really like that. That's not in this book, that's in the free DLC, so you should check that out. I did like that there's a media table for radio stations, and more specifically what's on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, what are you watching? Or what's being blared? I really liked that. It makes it feel more alive.
It's really neat? The ads table. It's got a group of pictures of advertisements that you may see somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you can roll to see what ad is on that wall, which is awesome.
That's a different
images
table,
and
isn't
stuff.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that. But you're right, the addition of the images is really nice too, because then you can see, you could be like, this is what it looks like.
Right. And that ELO ad looks really cool.
And then I think missions and plots, but more in the cliffhangers development, but that's because sometimes as a creator, I struggle. I think too much and I need to focus, and I struggle at focusing, because I'm like, well, they could go here. Oh, but then they could do this, or what about this? And then I try to put it all into one, and it's there's no way. So having those cliffhangers and developments, it's well, here are all my ideas, so let me roll randomly on the cliffhanger chart. Oh, well, a cliffhanger that, there's this little idea would fit these things. All right, what's the development? Oh, well, this will tie nicely with this. It's not on my list, but this kind of bridges to this section, which can have these things. So for story building, that one.
Fair enough. Sorry to put you on the spot. I love a good list, and there are so many lists.
There's so many lists. There's just 20 lists of random things.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, and there are lists of empty lists. I should say. I think that some of the random lists are blank.
Yeah, the list of random things are like just random thing number 1 through like 9, and then the percent of you hitting that, so you can generate. It's a random generator.
Yes. Yes, which is fantastic. And I do like that the random encounters, they made them like if it's day, if it's night, if it's after midnight. Because time of day absolutely matters.
For sure.
Random relationships are great. They're so good. There's so many good ones.
Yeah, check it out. For sure.
And that's my real quick and dirty listen tables explanation.
Right. And then last section of the book is the blank forms section for recording your solo play adventure. It's a large section at the end of the book of just blank forms but they've thought pretty much everything through here. You can create, track, and chart important NPCs. You've got the solo play clocks that we've talked about before. And there's so many trackers like investigation tracker, combat tracker, net run tracker, social challenge tracker. It even actually starts the section with a diceless chart. So you can play this as a diceless system using the blank diceless chart, which is awesome. I do terrible in diceless systems, but I like that they included it as an option. So
I do too, because it's one of those things. I have been somewhere where, traveling, and they're like, oh, well, like, what would it be like? And I've, and then like, okay, well, let's like run through a scenario. But because I was unprepared to talk about my hobby that I love, and I'm now kind of running the small scenario so they get understanding, I don't have dice on me.
You do, Jess.
But
you have a cell phone which has dice rollers.
But I also have a cell phone with a PDF where if it's saved and I don't have internet access, I can go to this page and randomly choose dice.
It's true. It gives you options, which is important. It also has the mission builder in there, and it ends with your XP tracking, so you know where you spent your IP. I apologize for saying XP. So you know where you spent all of your IP, and it's got the beat chart in there. So like anything you would need to play this, they've made a chart for you to be able to keep track of it, and that way you know. The quick and dirty combat character sheets are really nice too, because it's like the most boiled down basic, like, here's enemies 1 through 4, this is group 1, 2, 3, and 4 of those enemies, what weapons do they have, what are your results, that kind of thing, which is great.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to make your life easier so that you don't spend the entire time looking up rules in the book, always a good idea.
Always great.
But yeah, that is pretty much the book.
That is. Great tool, great resource, and cannot recommend it enough. If you guys have any questions about single player mode, please feel free to ask. I did get a couple from Blue Sky, so we're gonna answer those first. But if you have any questions while we're here in chat, feel free to post them. We'll get to them after these ones. So these questions are both based on feelings of like cheating, right? I don't want to cheat, but I still want to do these things. So how do I go about doing that? So first is struggling with IP. They said, I feel like I'm probably going to undercut myself out of concerns that giving too much would be cheating.
My thoughts on that are like, so you're in control of your story. You don't want to overpower your character by any means. But like, at the same time, if you're spending the IP to like, oh, I'm going to get slightly better at sleight of hand, or, like some small skill somewhere, not a big deal. If you're like, I need to give myself enough IP to get a 10 in my solo skill, like maybe you're giving yourself too much IP at that point. Like, I think you have to kind of balance it with your soul, and if you give yourself a crap ton of IP, start making the game harder. This is still a deadly game. It's a levelless game. It's not like D&D. The best runner ever could die to a shotgun held by somebody who's never fired a shotgun before with a few bad dice rolls.
Yep.
That's my thoughts on it.
My thoughts are, you're going to use the IP from the core rulebook, right? So first determine, the type of player that you are, and then, because that's how you get your individual IP, and then when, the mission succeeds, the goal succeeds, however long that takes you, that's when you get your group IP. And how often you choose to give yourself that IP is completely up to you. And if you think or you notice that it's going too fast, don't reward yourself as much as often. Or just don't reward yourself as often. Like, you are in control of that. You can choose to change it if you're like,
it's your story.
Man, this is a grind. Bump up how frequently you give yourself IP. I think most standard sessions, gameplay, most people are like between 3 and 6 hours, right? But a 6-hour session, you're going to get through a lot more than a 3-hour session. I also know tables who used to play for like 8 hours on a Saturday, and they're going to get through a lot more in a single session than someone who only plays 3 hours a week. In which point, like, if you're awarding the same amount of IP, like, yeah, the 3-hour session, in theory, may get more versus the ones that are playing for 8 hours, but it depends on, those beats and those intermediary. If you're playing single player and you're doing it at an hour on your lunch break every day, maybe don't reward yourself every day. Like, set yourself certain goals. It's like, okay, when a scene finishes out, no matter how long that scene takes, I'll give myself individual IP, or when I hit these goals, because you're writing the story, you know where it's going. You have the beat chart in front of you, you have the encounter. So when you get to the end of the mission, you reward yourself with the group IP per the core rulebook, and you can slot, you're like, okay, when this scene finishes, that's when I'm going to reward myself an IP. And then you base it like you would in the core rulebook. How well did your character, or how well did you do as a character with your preference style? Some will be better than others because there's only 2 of 4 options.
Also, I think that feeling becomes a big thing in this. Because if you feel like your character's a dirt farmer and you're not having fun because you're always bad at stuff, maybe you need to get some more IP.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're overpowered, you probably have too much IP. But if you're comfortable with where you're at with your skills and stuff like that, and you're telling a comfortable story, you're okay for now, Yeah. You will eventually need to grow and develop, but maybe you're just okay for a bit.
Yeah, and change it as you see fit. Maybe it's too much dirt farmer for the first however long, so you're like, alright, and then you're like, ooh, I'm a little overpowered for what I had planned. Scale it back. Find that happy balance.
I think blaming the dice is definitely a way that you could do it if you wanted to randomly generate the IP. To figure out how much your IP you're getting. But I also think that you can trust yourself. I know at the end of the day I'm not going to cheat on a game that I'm telling, because then it stops being fun for me. So
I would say the core has perfect examples of did your character do this? Did your character do this? Did they succeed in this? No? Then they get this.
Yeah, and you can always be real black and white with it.
Pretty fairly laid out.
And at the end of the day, you can ask the Oracle if you have a question.
There you go. And if you feel if you're oh man, I could do if it's within 10 or 20, dude, just go 20.
Yeah, do I get 40 or 50?
Seriously, give yourself the extra IP, and the next time, if you still feel like it was too much in your favor, the next time give yourself 10, the lower number. It balances. It all balances. But yeah, you're there. You determine what feels right to you, and how you've been doing in the story. So,
I don't think there's a line in succeeding versus succeeding. I think, if the mission's done, regardless of how that happened, You succeeded.
Yeah, it honestly depends on what the job was.
Right. If the job is to, like, hey, make sure this girl doesn't die, and she doesn't die, you did it.
Succeeded. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it
Even
was
if,
make sure this girl doesn't die or get harmed in any way, and she's got a few bullet holes in her, you didn't succeed, did you? There is no.
Yeah.
She's alive, but that was not the brief. The brief was alive and uninjured.
I would argue the severity of the injury. Like,
But
she's
that's because you argue. The brief was specific. You didn't succeed. But again, if you're going to sit there and make an excuse, then just give yourself the extra IP, because that's what you're lobbying for, right? Then that means somewhere inside you feel that it's worth that point, then just give it to you. Like, just give it to yourself.
It's like if...
I'm not going to tell. No one's going to tell on you. It's okay.
Except for possibly you, but...
Yeah.
Well, and, like, I've told my son before, like, if you're trying to make a decision between two things, flip a coin, knowing what side's heads, what side's tails. When the coin's in the air, you know what you want the answer to be. So regardless of where the coin lands, you know the answer. For me, every time.
I'm glad that works for you. That wouldn't work for me. But I have a similar, which is odd, because I have a similar thing that I learned from my grandmother, where it's like, it's you could do it with a coin toss or whatever, right? Choose heads or tails. When it lands and you see what it is, are you happy or disappointed? If you're disappointed, you clearly wanted the other one.
Yeah.
But I need to see that result.
Which is the same thing.
But I need to see the result to get that feeling. I can't get that feeling while it's in the air.
Fair enough. I just get the feeling earlier. That's all. But it's the same concept.
It's exactly the same concept, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm teaching that to my children.
Yeah. Not get over it, but trust the book, trust the system, and give yourself IP accordingly. And again, if it gets too easy, give yourself less IP or don't give it as often. Find the balance that works right for you in your story. There is no universal answer. Find the balance that works for you in your story.
Did I ever tell you about my Werewolf the Apocalypse game?
I don't think so.
So I told World of Darkness game, there was a combination of all the old, like, 2nd and 3rd edition World of Darkness characters. There was a vampire, there was, a werewolf, blah, 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 blah.
Etc.
Yeah. We told the story across, like, an entire calendar year. We met twice a week for an entire calendar year, and that was the story. But the guy who was the werewolf was like, I kind of want to continue playing, so we kept playing, but he was already so powerful because I was telling a end-of-the-world story that, like, it's hard to threaten him. I literally had to detonate multiple nukes to kill him, but that's because I wanted him to have to go through the land of death as part of the story arc, but there was no other way to kill him. So if you get to that point, you have too much experience.
There you go. The other question, I hope that helps. I really do. I hope it listens. Trying to be helpful. The second question is handling job rewards, aka loot, above and beyond. Job pays X based on difficulty Y. Right? This is your typical job payout. So if you have a GM, this is their example, right? If I have a GM, I might say, hey, I really want to use the hot pursuit rules in a future job, and a reasonable GM could probably arrange things such that the group gets a vehicle to facilitate that desire. Right? But they're a little gun shy on that themselves because that's a really valuable item, and should I just be getting it for free? No, I should work for it, so then I have to squirrel away for like 20 jobs to afford a car legitly.
You are too hard on yourself. In my opinion. Maybe the reward is like they have access to a car that's not theirs, so if it gets damaged, they're on the hook for a lot of money to repair it. Or maybe it's not a very good car, like happened to some characters that we've played. When you get a car and you're like, this isn't a great car, but it was free. So, like, I feel like you can't be so hard on yourself if you're like, I would like this character to have a car, and realistically, what it would take for them to get one by purchasing one is way too high. Let yourself have the car, just give yourself some small stipulations that make it reasonable. In my opinion.
Yeah. I will say make it a narrative option. So whether it is expensive piece of gear like a $5,000 or a 5,000 ebb katana, or a vehicle, make it a story. Why is that important? So if we go with the vehicle example, just because there was a vehicle as the example, right? You could steal a vehicle, you could buy a vehicle, or it could be gifted to you. Right? If it's gifted, it probably comes with some strings like Game said. And if you have too many side plots going on, those strings could come at a later time. That's perfectly fine. If, you're going to steal it, well, who are you stealing it from? What is that person going to do when they get that car back?
People are typically not happy if their cars are stolen.
And it depends on who the car was stolen from. Did you steal it from a corpo, unknowingly? Or did you steal it from a gang? Now, most of the bigger gangs are going to mark their cars. Maybe not. Maybe it was, a drug dealer who works for a gang and it's their car and they have that gang support. You didn't know. Or maybe it's the car involved in a crime scene that just happened, or there's bodies in the trunk, and now you're on the hook for murder that you didn't commit because you stole a car. That's a whole thing. Yeah, you get this car, but what is the story around you getting that car? And then if you want to buy it, you could save up, which is going to be really, really hard. Or, yes, patient, exactly, John Wick, cough, cough. You could save up, or you do what we do now. You get a loan. You finance it through the car company. Or, if they won't give you one because you don't have a credit score, you find someone who's willing to lend you the money, and someone is always willing to lend you the money. What strings come attached with that? So
Right.
If it is a car company, and there's plenty, I'm sure there's a list in this book. If not, I know the 100 Logos DLC has a bunch of different car companies. But what happens when the dealership, you start paying monthly amounts, which could be a nice way to, if you think you're getting paid too much and you have nothing to spend it on, that's a good way to supplement the income, because now you have a loan that you also have to pay. But what happens when their shipment gets interrupted, or the nomads controlling the docks are holding their stock until they get paid an extra fee? Well, they're going to collect it from their clients because they're not going to front it. So what happens when they come knocking on you a couple months later saying you need to owe us this much money or we're going to take the car back?
And also, if you've missed a payment or two as part of the story of what's going on, maybe you're in the middle of a run and your car gets repoed.
Yeah.
There are things you can do with this.
Or if you are paying on time and you got it from a loan shark, what happens when that loan shark comes to you and says, hey, I'll knock 20 grand off your loan, but you have to do a job for me?
Right.
20 grand's a lot of money, but then what's the job? Similarly, because I keep thinking, it was okay, but that's for big ticket purchase items. What if I just want a really cool 5 grand sword and I don't feel like trying to save up money because I always get injured in combat encounters that pay high amounts, and I would say you could have it as loot, but put it on loot of a boss where it is relevant. You know that they are either a recurring character or they're going to be a recurring enemy, and taking that sword or whatever it would be in my example, I'm going to just keep using katana, is going to be a narrative plot point, if not immediately, somewhere down the line. Or it's been a boss that you've been constantly fighting, and this is kind of your victory loop. Because as a GM, that's what I would do, right? I know you want this thing. You've been fighting these people successfully. I'm going to give you this weapon. Eventually.
Right.
Not off the bat.
Maybe you take out this Arasaka exec and take his katana because it's been this whole build-up and it's been a thing, and this is your prize. But who knows, maybe 6 months from now, somebody sees you wielding it and they're like, that's my father's katana.
Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be bad, as long as there's a narrative around it. So say that you really want this Mono 3 katana. And there's maybe a kendo tournament in a district where the top winner gets that as a prize. Well, now you've got an actual tournament style event you can go to, and you'll get to build NPCs. You can fast forward through the fast ones, maybe do some quick and dirty for the semifinals and play out the full final battle if you want to. But like you have to like work your way, and it's like a $250 entry, which with 20 combatants would cover their cost for the sword. But for you, getting it at $250 is like a frickin' steal. But who are these enemies? Who are these fighters? You're obviously going to have like idiots who can't handle a weapon, but then you're going to have some really skilled people. You're also going to have people who play dirty because they want that. Or what about the guy who wants it because there's a loan shark coming after him for the car payments he missed, and so even if he doesn't win, he's going to steal the sword from you out in the alley afterwards. You know, like you can build onto it if you want, or you could just make it a really cool tournament moment to get the thing that you want. If it's a piece of cyberware or cyberdeck, maybe you're participating in a game tournament down at Playland by the Sea. Like there's so many things you could do as long. So my advice is, if you want the really, really cool thing, build a narrative around it.
Yeah.
And I as long as there's like a narrative element, and you that may or may not come back to haunt you, as long as there's obstacles, I think it's fine and it's valid. Just make it a story.
Yep.
Yeah, there would be, so as long as you have either it's a sense of earning it, but it also gives you plot points. Sorry, Heroic said in the car example, a hardened lieutenant has a key to a parked car outside. First you need to defeat them in some manner, then succeed conceal reveal to find the keys. There'd be a feeling of earning it. Absolutely. And because you write it in your notes, what is in the lieutenant's car, which is those open questions from the Oracle that you can ask because you don't know what's in the car. Could be good, could be bad, could be a pile of drugs that now that lieutenant is gonna send his gang after you because you have the drugs. Maybe they care more about what's in the car than the car itself. So there's always, I think, having a thing, if it's going to be like a simple obstacle, like defeating a hardened lieutenant, depending on your skill level, and a simple conceal reveal check, having an extra element beyond that as a future plot hook is really handy. Otherwise, if you're going to make like a tournament, like that's a whole series of events, and are people betting outside of it?
Right.
And what's the rest of the crew doing? Are they cheering you on? Are they trying to get distracted? Is a member trying to pickpocket through the crowd while everyone's focused on the thing? But if it's like a full narrative scene, like I think that's enough. But if it's just going to be like a simple 1-2 step to get this thing, I would use it as a potential future plot hook as well.
Yeah.
Like not changing the
or
plates
is it completely
or painting the
twist
car
as it
so
is?
that the people you took it from recognize it.
Well, or imagine like you steal a car because you're like, oh, I really need to get out of Haywood, right? Like I gotta get across town, so you steal a car. You're about halfway down the road, like to where you're going, and you hear banging in the trunk, and like a city commissioner's daughter has been kidnapped and is bound and gagged in the trunk. You're like, oh, this is a real bad situation.
Yeah. Or you're trying to leave and there's a car running outside and you take it and it's a Fixie's courier's car.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yeah, I think that a lot of solo mode comes down to what you feel is balanced.
And
it's your story. Yep.
I think for me, it's most important is telling a story.
Yep.
I want this really cool item. Cool, you can have it. What is the story behind it? What is the story of obtaining this item?
Why does it matter?
And if you need ideas, roll in the random list. There's tons of them. They'll help you out.
Or get a hold of us.
Yeah.
There are places you can find us.
Yes.
And we'll give you opinions. They're not good, but we'll give them to you.
I think our opinions are solid.
I
more
think your
helpful.
opinions are solid, but I think if somebody messaged me at 4 in the morning and they're like, "Hey, I don't know why my character stole this slushy machine. What should I do about that?" Man, my answer would be such nonsense.
I don't know that that answer would change between 4 a.m. and like 6 p.m.
No,
2
yeah, it'd be
p.m.
pretty much
I
the
think it's
same.
probably still going to be the same answer of like, enjoy all the squishies, get a brain freeze, don't worry about it, and then drop the machine off in some gang that you don't like's place so they get blamed for it.
Right.
Don't check for cameras, you won't need to worry about that.
Set up a lemonade stand with it, make as much money as you can, and
Yeah,
then
before it
abandon it in a
Continental
bad part of
Brands
town.
comes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can reach out to us, Blue Sky, YouTube, the Saves vs. Death Discord is probably the best place to do that.
You can find me anywhere that good games ends are found, so just everywhere.
And I think if I don't see any other questions, so I think we're good. I think we've really normally go with like our final thoughts on a thing. I think we've expressed that we think this is awesome and amazing, and if we were stranded on a desert island with the core bowl book and only one other option, we would pick single player mode. I think this is a lot.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts you'd like to say before I do the goodbye spiel?
I don't believe so. I think I'm good.
Alright.
Love you guys. Thank you for joining us. I want to say that.
That will conclude this episode of Night City Sofas. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Sure to leave a comment about your thoughts on the segment and future things you might like to see discussed. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to connect with Edgerunners HQ, you can head on over to Blue Sky, Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube. Just search Edgerunners HQ, no spaces. Next, Night City Sofa will return next week to do a playthrough using single player mode, so you'll get to see it in action. We will have the charts up, and be sure to come back and see how it all fits together. And until next time, meow for now.